The Connors are back. Finally, we are getting new episodes of The Connors. Season 3 started with tonight's episode, Keep on Truckin', 6 Feet Apart. Let's talk about The Connors. Hey guys, Dan here. Thank you for joining me on Dan Reviews It. If you only really watch my channel for my Connors reviews, well, that is my new intro. We developed that a few weeks ago. A friend of mine sent that to me in honor of my 500 subscribers, which, by the way, has been growing steadily by the week. I'm almost now at 600 subscribers. So if you have not subscribed up to my channel yet, please do so. I'd love to have you aboard. And of course, if you do like this video, go ahead and click that like button down there. Comment below too, because I always love engaging with you guys about stuff like The Connors. If you have been with me since Roseanne season 10 and have been following along with The Connors reviews, oh my gosh, how exciting is it to get new episodes in this day and age, the COVID era, of some Connors episodes. So we actually have at least 4 weeks straight of episodes, including next week we're going to have a Halloween episode, which will be very special, of course. That's always been the big holiday for Roseanne fans. So we'll get to that. But first, let's talk about tonight's season premiere. Keep on Truckin', 6 Feet Apart is the name of it, like I mentioned. And basically, it gives us a look at how COVID has affected the Connor family, which makes sense. I mean, I had heard a few weeks ago when they were going back into production that they would be tackling things head on with COVID, which makes complete sense. The Connors have never shied away, or Roseanne for that matter, has never shied away from being topical and talking about how current economy issues are affecting the Connors. So in this episode, we start with a little light humor with Mark trying to get everybody's temperature on their way in the house, and everybody's sitting 6 feet apart at the dinner table. Becky's outside on the patio, so there's some humor there. But we learn that Louise, the Katie Seagal character from last season, is now pretty much quarantining with them. She's not really quite living there yet, but she's been quarantining with them and cooking the meals and everything. And then meanwhile, Ben, J.R. Ferguson, is living there. He's been living there with Darlene. And I also noticed, as an aside, that he appears now, well, facially he does not appear in the opening credits, but his name now is part of the opening credits. They've left the credit sequence alone for all 3 seasons now of The Connors. So the look of it is the same, but they are changing in and out the names of the people, which I think is very interesting that J.R. Ferguson gets a title credit, because back in the original days of Roseanne, David and Mark did not get title credits. They were always just sort of on the guest starring list, even though they were in pretty much every episode for a few seasons. But anyway, I thought that was a very nice touch. I love the Ben character, so I'm glad to see him moving up to full-time status on the show. But anyway, they're both living in the house, and soon into the episode, we learn that they are going to officially be evicted in a few days. They sort of were joking at the dinner scene about how, maybe they've made it through because banks are looking to foreclose on, nicer places, bigger properties that they can get more money from, or what have you. And then we see Danny Trejo playing the neighbor, who, by the way, that just came out of left field. I looked up Danny Trejo's filmography just to make sure I wasn't forgetting that maybe he was on a previous episode of The Connors, or that he goes back to the Roseanne days, and I didn't find anything. So he apparently is a new friend of theirs, but as the audience, I guess we were supposed to know him or whatever, but I didn't. I'd never seen him before on the show. But by the way, Danny Trejo has 374 credits in acting on IMDb. It's kind of wild. So anyway, he is not only their neighbor, but he's now working to serve people with papers, because obviously he's out of a job too, out of his usual job. So Dan gets that news and tries to hide it from the family for a little while, but they do eventually learn what's going on when Jackie sees Dan at the drywall place by himself. He fired the rest of his crew because he had to financially, but of course that means he's going to be laid up with some back issues and whatnot, which we see later in the episode. And then speaking of Jackie, she is it's affected her by doing deliveries now. The Lanford Lunchbox just reopened shortly before COVID, and of course their business is not doing so hot. Nobody's really dining in right now, so she is on her bike delivering the goods to people. We see her kind of all over the town, bumping into people everywhere they are. In terms of Becky, well, you've got Emilio back. Now, they married in the end of the last season, so he could, hopefully get there legally eventually, but he's now hiding out in the lunchbox, and nobody really knows that he's there. Darlene finds out later in the episode about that, but at first nobody really knows he's there, and she is terrified that ICE is going to come and take him away. And we see a cop come in for some pickup food, and Emilio's there like prepping the food, and he introduces himself as the new chef, and he makes up a fake name and all this. So Becky's a little bit freaked out about that kind of stuff. But Becky's been affected by COVID personally as well, because they can't really afford to keep her in hours at the lunchbox. So she is out of a job, sort of. I mean, she still has stake in the ownership of the lunchbox. So if that succeeds, she will succeed too. But in the meantime, she's not really working there, so to speak, as we learn later in the episode. And then in terms of Darlene and Ben, well, they have been trying to get this new, community gossip rag kind of up and running, something that they were working towards last season. And finally, the first issue is coming up. Darlene's been writing a lot for it, but they can't get any advertisers for it because, of course, businesses aren't really shelling out money right now. Makes total sense. So they decide to kind of call it a day as well, about 2/3 of the way through the episode. And DJ and Mary, oh, wait, they're not in this episode yet again. This is like, okay, here's the deal. If you're new to my Connors reviews, let me lay it out for you. If you've been here for a while, you know how I feel about this already. But either give DJ and Mary something to do. Give them stories or cut them out of the GD show. It's so obnoxious that, this is our first episode back. The season premiere, the first episode after COVID. There's not even a mention of them. There's 3 mentions of Roseanne in this episode, but there's no mention of DJ as far as I remember. We see them in the opening credits, of course. And I know Michael Fishman, who plays DJ, he's going to direct next week's Halloween episode. So, all right, fine. They're giving him something to do off camera. But, I think for a show that is trying to pack in too much already in 22 minutes, they clearly don't have storylines for these characters. So just cut them loose. Make them special guest stars. When they come around, it's an event or whatever, but it's very annoying that that they were not in it yet again. I thought maybe because it was the season premiere we would see them, but not so much. And we do see, I mentioned Mark, has a little scene at the beginning. We see Harris in the opening scene as well, but that's it. They don't have any other parts of this episode either. And to be honest, I mean, it's fine. I think really the main 4, Darlene, Becky, Dan, and Jackie, they're the ones that we should certainly be focusing on in this season premiere. Obviously, we'll have some more episodes later on, maybe with, going to school over Zoom for Mark or something like that. And they could even throw Mary into the mix for that. But we only saw them a little bit, and that was fine, because I really am glad we got to focus on the main characters here. And we saw Louise a good bit as well. She was in a few different scenes and sort of offering for Dan to move in with her. So clearly she's not living there permanently at this point. She still has her own place, but Dan basically says, look, I'm not going to leave everybody behind, so thank you, but no thank you. We're going to stick it through. but at the same time, he also refuses to accept help from the kids, which eventually, they convince him to, but in a pretty humorous moment, Darlene's like, yeah, but we are going to be a few weeks late with the rent. Becky says the same thing. But the real sort of big, like, oh my gosh moment of the episode, I would say, if you didn't read about it ahead of time, is that Wellman Plastics is returning to the storyline. So Wellman Plastics is where Roseanne and Jackie got their start back, in the beginning of Roseanne. It was only, I think, in that first season, and then they quit at the end of that season. I don't think it went into season 2 even. I'm trying to remember when I did my season reviews of Roseanne, but I think Wellman Plastics was just in season 1, and Crystal worked there with them as well, and Anne Marie. So a lot of the gang from those first couple seasons, were part of the Wellman family, and then we even saw Mrs. Wellman as a regular at the hair salon where Roseanne worked in season 3 or something. But anyway, so right in the first scene, we see, Jackie's looking in the paper and saying, "Oh my gosh, like they're reopening Wellman Plastics. It got too expensive for them to farm out their stuff to China, so they're reopening the plant here in Lanford." And so by the end of the episode, we see Becky and Darlene online to actually interview and hopefully gain employment with Wellman Plastics, because they both have decided that is the only thing that they can really do right now. Darlene had a lot of trouble getting the newspaper off the ground, or the magazine, and Becky, of course, is only thinking of Emilio and their baby, and that's sort of where she reveals to Darlene that, yes, Emilio is in the country and everything. And there's a really touching scene there with the two of them. I mean, Darlene is in tears, just saying, we should have been better than our parents. Like, the goal is, for every parent, that their child does better than them. And here we are, we are right where Mom and Aunt Jackie started, 20 years before they got to our age, and that kind of thing. And it was a very nice moment, very touching. And Becky even had her mom's old Wellman Plastics shirt to sort of, brush up to the guys that are interviewing her. And then at the end, we actually see them in the plant. They got the job, they're going to work. They did like a little Laverne and Shirley routine that they sort of turned on its ear when they were like, instead of "we're gonna do it," they were like, "we're not gonna make it." And then they realized that, oh, Laverne and Shirley were supposed to be about 22 when they were working in the Schatz brewery, and we're now in our 40s doing this. So that's basically what happened in the episode. It was directed by a Roseanne and Connor's favorite. Well, I don't think she did any Roseanne episodes, actually, but Jody Margolin Hahn, who has directed a few of the Connors episodes so far, including the live episode they did around the primaries in February, I guess it was, or maybe that was March. I think it was February. And then the writer of this episode is Bruce Helford, who goes way back. I mean, he was part of the original Roseanne crew, and even before that, he was doing work on Family Ties and all of this. But he's very involved with the Connors. He's, in fact, one of the co-creators of the Connors. So he, it's great to have him writing an episode, because he knows these characters inside and out. He knows them just as well as anybody, as well as the actors playing them, and as well as us, the audience. So, he didn't throw us any curveballs with that. But look, it is not easy to do comedy based around essentially tragedy. I mean, the COVID-19 pandemic is a tragedy. Obviously, it's a pandemic. We've been dealing with it now for 8 months, I want to say, since March. And so, yeah, that would be at least 7 months, heading into month number 8, I guess. And for a while, it didn't look like we were going to get any TV, because Hollywood was shut down for so long. And finally, about a month and a half ago, people said, okay, let's, get back to business. I did notice that they did not say up front that The Connors is filmed before a live studio audience. So my guess is that it's too soon to have an audience, even though Saturday Night Live is doing it, and I guess maybe there's some other shows doing it, but I would say all of the laughs we heard in tonight's episode were canned and pre-recorded, and that's, look, that's to be expected, at least for a little while. But I did take notice of that. I was wondering if they were going to at least have something up front to say about that. But look, doing mining comedy from COVID is not easy. It's something that a lot of shows are still struggling with. Of course, the talk shows sort of have been doing it since the beginning, so they've been able to find that sweet spot of laughs. And Roseanne, look, the Roseanne and the Connors crews, they do what they do best, which is, toe that line between comedy and drama, and we see it constantly on the Connors. They're really carrying that torch from the Roseanne years of, the downtrodden economy and, people losing their jobs in this family and this, that, and the other thing. And, of course, the death of their mother to opioids. So they're no strangers to this, and I knew that they were going to do it justice, and they did. I mean, I think there were some definite laughs in this episode and some really, really touching moments as well. However, a couple of things I didn't like. I already talked about DJ and Mary. I really didn't like that they weren't in this episode. I mean, if they are a part of this show, if they're a part of this family on the Connors television show, the first episode back after COVID, you gotta give them something to do. Even if it's a couple of lines, at least respect them and respect the audience by letting them do something, or just cut them loose. So I didn't like that. But, look, I expect that at this point. I mean, I complain about it all the time. But really, one of the other gripes I have, and I talked about this briefly when they did it in an episode last season. So with Wellman Plastics being open, Jackie was sort of reminiscing about, her time with Booker, who was played by George Clooney, and they had a great George Clooney joke in there. Jackie saying she should have, lasted longer with him. She should have given him more chances, because he looked like George Clooney. Great laugh line. But then they give us a flashback scene that lasts, I don't know, 40 seconds or something, 45 seconds, to her and Booker going bowling from one of those early episodes. And I didn't really love it when they did it the last season. Now, there was one episode where they did it, and I liked it. But, look, they're lowering the time that you get an episode now because of all the loaded up commercials. I've talked about this so many times before, but, it used to be 25 minutes, 25 and a half, something like that. Now it's like 22 minutes for an episode or less. Why are we taking almost a minute of that time to give us a flashback of something that we as the audience mostly already remember? Most of the people watching the Connors are going to remember the old Roseanne years where they worked at Wellman Plastics. And if they don't, guess what? It was written in the script perfectly so that we were caught up instantly. Even if I never heard of Wellman Plastics, I was caught up immediately on what that meant to the family and the family's history. And you give me a George Clooney joke with it, great. The joke lands, and then we move on to the next scene. I didn't need that flashback. It was completely irrelevant to the plot of this episode, and it made me annoyed that they took away precious time that they now have to squeeze in all these plots and jokes and lines in 22 minutes. Don't give me a nearly 1 minute flashback scene that has no bearing on the rest of the episode. That was really, I think, a miss for me. I didn't like that. So that was sort of the main things I would say. And also, I'm not sure how much I love the Emilio plot right now. I'm hoping they're going to do something a little more with it than just he's hiding out. Obviously, the whole family's going to find out because they'll be asking the same exact questions Darlene asked about, well, who's going to watch your baby while you're working at Wellman Plastics, Becky? Oh, Emilio, I mean, she could lie maybe to some of them and say Emilio's tias are watching them, or watching her, I should say. They watched her, last season, that was fine. But she clearly didn't say that to Darlene, so I don't know. But again, there were some good jokes. Great to see the family back. I mean, I can't deny that at all. We've been starved for television that we know and love with new episodes. I mean, now I am a little bit lucky in the respect that I'm always sort of behind on my TV, except for a handful of shows. I always watch Saturday Night Live every week when it's on. I catch up on the Connors more so I can talk about it with you guys than anything else. But I watch that as it's on. But I'm still catching up on a lot of last season shows. Like I'm halfway through This Is Us for the season, and halfway through the Superstore season. So for me, I have still plenty of new episodes to watch of shows that won't be premiering until January. But it is certainly great that after 5 months and really not knowing whether we would get new episodes until 2021, it's great to see these guys back. It's great that they're mining humor from COVID. This is what they do best on the Connors. It's what they always have since the early 90s with Roseanne. But there were definitely a few things that I could have done without in this episode, or maybe could have done with more of, like DJ and Mary's existence. Giving them something to do. I don't know how is DJ affected by the pandemic? I don't know. If they mentioned it, it was a blip because I must have missed it. But anyway, grade-wise, as much as I would like to give this a higher grade, because it is the season premiere and it's our first episode after COVID and all of this, and I do think they did, pretty well with mining some laughs from it. I don't think it was a super strong episode. Plot-wise, I think it will set up the season well. But as a standalone episode, I'm a little more torn on it. So I'm going to leave Keep on Truckin' 6 Feet Apart with a B. Maybe that's a little harsh. I don't know. Like I said, I do think it's setting up the season well. I think we're going to see a lot of great plot lines revolving around Wellman Plastics. I don't think they're going to get George Clooney back or anything, but I think we'll see some good plot lines revolving with that, and obviously with the house being, they're going to be evicted from that in a few days. That will be interesting. The Danny Trejo cameo was like sort of weird. Like there were just certain things in this episode that I just thought were kind of weird, but. So maybe B's a little harsh, but I don't know. I'm sticking with it. But anyway, that's it. As happens sometimes, my reviews are about as long as the episodes themselves. But some of you have told me that you like that, so God bless you. Yes, please comment below. I love hearing from you guys always about the Connors. What did you think of this? Am I way too low on this? Did you love the Clooney flashback? Was that great television for you? For me, I would have liked to have taken that 45 seconds and made it more plot focused on the current situation. But either way, thank you so much for watching, and luckily we'll see you back here next week for the Halloween episode. Thanks for watching. Bye.